Welcome to the Disability Approval Path.
Welcome to Social Security Disability, the Approval Path with Ms. Deborah Spector, lead attorney and managing partner at Spector and Lenz, and a trusted disability attorney helping clients with the benefits they deserve. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're breaking down eligibility for Social Security disability benefits. This is, am I eligible for Social Security disability benefits? Ms. Deborah, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be here with you.
All right, let's get down to it. What does the government actually mean by disability or the purposes of SSDI or SSI? Just we talked about it in an earlier episode, but let's just get a little bit more into it and kind of what qualifies it from a government's perspective.
All right, let's take SSDI first. SSDI is an income replacement program for workers and their families when contributions have been made to the Social Security system. Does it replace a person's actual net income? No, but it's a step toward making sure that there's a basic insurance payment every month to replace income. The amount of that benefit is based on how much the individual contributed to the Social Security Trust Fund during his or her working life. And as you know, we have in theory a trust fund that was established for the deposit of Social Security taxes and from which Social Security benefits are paid. The reality is that over the many decades since the 1930s, Social Security has really become a pay-as-you-go system. You know, my taxes, your taxes are being used now to pay out benefits. But the theory is that there's a trust fund. SSI, on the other hand, the Supplemental Security Income Program, is a welfare program. And the funds for that program, which are also used to provide a guaranteed minimum amount of money for elderly, disabled, and blind individuals in our country, that money comes out of general tax dollars. For SSDI, am I eligible? Well, question one is, did you pay in? Or did someone with whom you're attached pay in? And by attached, I mean a parent. In some cases, a parent taking care of young children. In other cases, a divorced spouse, for example. Different people can pull on the worker's contributions depending on the relationship and meeting certain criteria, but it all depends on the worker being disabled. And what does it mean to be disabled? Again, we always come back to the 5 steps, the 5-step evaluation Social Security uses to determine if a person's disabled. Otherwise, Evan, you and I may have widely different ideas about what it means to be disabled, but the government has a system for analyzing it. Question 1, are you working? Working means in 2025, earning more than $1,620 a month. I cannot say this loudly enough, gross in bold letters. Question 2, if you're not working, do you have a medically determinable impairment? That means something which, upon examination by medical providers, laboratory signs, tests, and findings, objective information, in other words, do you have something that can be identified that causes functional limitations? Limitations in your ability to, for example, see, hear, speak, use judgment, operate properly interpersonally, stand, walk, lift, carry. You need something that interferes with the basic work function, and that something has to last a minimum of 12 months. Now, often people will get misinformation and think they can't apply for benefits within the first 12 months. Well, of course they can, but the impairment, the serious impairment, severe impairment, has to be projected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months or result in death sooner. If you pass that step, question 3, do you have a condition that's found on a list of things that would disable anybody? Here, the government has taken the human body, broken it out into about 14 different systems, and actually in its regulations lists specific medical findings. If you have those, and they're pretty serious, they'll find you disabled. If you don't have one of those, we go to step 4. What is your residual capacity? What can you do despite your impairments? And then the government compares that to your past work. Can you do your past work? If you can, even with your impairment, you're not disabled. If you can't do your past work, we go on to question 5. Question 5 is given your age, your education, and your past work experience, which really means your skill level. Is there other work in the national economy you can do? The program is weighted toward approval of older workers. The younger you are, the more difficult it is to get on benefits because your age will work against you. There is simply administrative notice taken that there are vastly more numbers of jobs available in the national economy for younger impaired workers than there are for older impaired workers. And again, as I've explained, there's a 6th question we always ask: is there a history of substance abuse?
Right.
If there is substance abuse, it's not a bar in our firm toward trying to help someone get disability benefits. We just need to know all about it and how it fits within the analysis, what we can say about it. So that analytically is how adults are adjudicated. Now, kids have a different standard. For kids, if a kid, there's a separate set of listings, medical conditions that automatically entitle a kid to a low-income kid to disability. But if you don't meet one of those, the question's a little more complex. The government here takes a child's life and breaks it into 6 discrete domains: acquiring and using information, moving about, manipulating objects, health, a few others, and says you need a marked impairment in at least 2 of those domains. So it's a different kind of analysis. Those cases turn in great part on teacher reports, education reports, and then most of our child clients, have what are called IEPs. Those are individual education plans. And that's how the school is accommodating the child's disability. So the evidence and analysis is different, but you can see the fundamental commonalities, which are identifying severe impairments that will last at least 12 months, and then looking at Social Security's analytical system. And then our jobs as lawyers is to see how we can fit our clients into the analytical framework and overcome the things that would be a bar to benefits. Hope that answers that question.
It did. But Ms. Deborah, is it possible to qualify if you've never worked or haven't even worked recently?
You bet. And that's when you look at the SSI program. If you've never worked, if you're an adult who's never worked, then you look at SSI. If you are an adult who has worked but hasn't worked for many years, then the first thing we do is figure out what's the last date on which you worked that would entitle you to SSDI. We call this, and then we add some time to that. It's called your date last insured. What this means is that when you're paying your taxes and you stop paying your taxes, you get a grace period with Social Security during which you're still covered. It's just like car insurance. I tell my clients, you're insured with your car insurance carrier. You stop making your payments, though. You don't pay your premiums. Well, we all know you're usually covered for a month. You get a grace period after you pay your last premium. But if you have that car accident on day 34, you're out of luck, right?
Yep.
Same thing with Social Security, but it's a very long grace period. But after you stop paying taxes, you're still covered for a while. And you have to show that your disability begins during that period. If your disability begins after that period ends, just like with your car, you're out of luck. But you can still turn to the SSI program if you're low income and low asset.
So, Ms. Deborah, how does age factor into eligibility for benefits? We kind of touched on it a little bit, but can you
Oh,
kind
it's
of break it down?
huge. It's absolutely huge. Okay, many years ago, some people still mistakenly think that 65 is full retirement age.
Right.
It's not. For you, it's going to be 67 or 67-ish. And it was gradually increased over the last many years. So full retirement comes in at 67. At any point, a couple of months shy maybe, at any point younger than that, you can still apply for disability.
Mm.
You can be 64 years old and apply for disability if something has happened and you can't work. If you're already collecting early retirement so that you have some cash coming in to pay the mortgage or the rent and put food on the table, if you're already collecting early retirement, you can apply for disability and try to get that differential between the full retirement and the discounted early retirement. So that's one way age plays into this. More important, though, when we do the analysis of whether someone's disabled, when we get down to step 5, which is there work for you in the national economy? The government uses a series of tables that they developed years ago that take administrative notice that there's not as much work out there for me as there is for you, Evan, because of my age. So the older you are, the government factors in, the less likely it is that there's work out there for you if you can't do your past work. The older you are, the easier it is to get benefits. With the same medical and vocational profile, we can have, I always like to use my carpet layers and tile setters. They're among my favorite clients. Okay, guys who lay carpet and lay tile are on their knees all day and they're carrying boxes of materials and they're carrying heavy equipment. And then they're down on their knees all day and those knees get shot, right? So they get to be like 58, 57 years old. They might need knee replacements. Their shoulders might be in trouble. They can't lift the boxes of materials anymore. And if we prove that up, they can't do their past work. And then Social Security's rules say, given age, education, and work experience, for a guy who's been doing that for 35 years, we do not expect him to do lighter work. It doesn't exist in the national economy. But the same guy with some other problem with his knees, 36 years old, they would say, you're out of luck. At 36, if you can sit at a desk and answer the phone, there's work for you. So that's an example of how age plays into it. Critical factor. Education, less important in our area of the country, but can also be very important. Skill level. Do you have skills that would transfer to lighter work? And that also factors in. So that's what we look at. The actual Social Security Act, the statute, says you are disabled if, by reason of a medically determinable impairment that has lasted or can be expected to last for a continuous period of not less than 12 months, you can't do your past work or any other work in the national economy for which you might be suited by age, education, and work experience. That's the statute. It's short, and then we have hundreds of regulations interpreting it. But that's basically the idea. You have to prove you can't do your past work. Burden shifts to the government. Is there any other work you can do?
So, Ms. Deborah, what about mental health conditions, though? Do they fall under that purview for disabilities under Social Security rules?
Absolutely, absolutely, and great question. And mental health questions and cases are among our most common and, frankly, our most difficult. You and I both know that people with profound mental health problems might be able to get jobs, they can't keep them, might be able to do some work, but can't sustain work. As a practical matter, same analysis applies. Is it medically determinable? By which I mean, are you seeing mental health professionals? Are you actively in treatment? Social Security likes psychiatrists, psychologists with PhDs or PsyDs. Over the years, they have increasingly accepted psychiatric evidence from advanced practice nurses and licensed clinical social workers, because as we all know, pardon me, most of the mental health care in this country is not provided by psychiatrists or psychologists. It's provided by primary care providers who, in my opinion, are out there saving lives every day by helping people with mental health problems, prescribing the proper medication when appropriate. They're lifesavers. But we need somebody who's diagnosing, evaluating, and treating before our office feels we can help. And then the question is severity. Now, how do we prove up severity?
Yeah.
It depends case by case. There could be a history of hospitalizations. There could be a history, sadly, but we see too many times, of suicide gestures. There could be a history of folks who don't leave their homes for long periods of time. Thank God for telehealth. So we need something to prove it up. It's not enough to make the allegation. Just like with the physical problem, the allegation is not enough. We have to prove it. Now, how do we prove it? Through the medical records. And then we often and increasingly use personal statements from our client and from the family and friends, people who can attest to social isolation, concentration problems, memory problems, inappropriate behavior. You bet. Very, very hard, but we do these cases all the time.
So, Ms. Deborah, can someone still be denied even if their doctor says they are disabled? Are there other instances and cases where they can still get denied from that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Ow!
Oh, yeah. Okay. The statistics, which of course are a little bit fluid, but they show that between 60 and 70% of all initial disability claims are denied. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So we're talking roughly 2/3. You have a 1 in 3 chance of having your disability claim approved when you apply. What does that mean? Well, they're looking for the absolute slam bang, can't be making a mistake cases. And they're looking for the really tragic disability cases. They're looking for people who have terminal illnesses, loss of 2 limbs, IQs in the 50s, wheelchair bound, bed bound. You know, those are the people who get approved initially. People with older people often with solid diagnoses of dementia, Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, all kinds of dementias. Those folks get approved. Sometimes we see people initially approved if they're a little bit older with Parkinson's disease, if it's severe and properly documented. But everybody else gets denied. And when people come to us and they haven't applied yet, and we help them apply sometimes, and we say, it's with the understanding that the odds are you will be denied. I don't want to hear about it. You know, like you're going to be denied, and we're going to have to start the appeal process.
Mm-hmm.
There are 4 steps within Social Security, 3 appeals. The initial application, denied 1/3 of the time. The reconsideration, denied close to 90% of the time. Pretty much a rubber stamp. And here the government is looking to make sure it didn't miss something big, like a cancer or some other condition.
Right.
The 3rd step, second appeal, and this is a hearing before an administrative law judge. Now, these are really interesting. They're kind of mini trials, but they're administrative. Instead of a judge, we have an administrative law judge, a federal government employee. There's no prosecutor. And you come in and make your case in front of the judge. Since COVID, almost all of these cases are done on Microsoft Teams or by telephone, which has completely changed the practice. It's made it less stressful for claimants, but we can also do a high quality video like you and I are doing now and get the same information a judge would get if the claimant were sitting in the room with her. So
Wow.
It's made it much easier for this practice to continue. If you lose the hearing, though, and nationally, again, it's fluid, but nationally, a little more than half of the cases at the hearing level are approved. The judges do approve those cases, at least 50% of the time. But if you lose that case, then there's one more appeal before the agency. That goes to Baltimore, where there's a board called the Appeals Council. It's
Wow.
made up of judges, and they review cases on paper only. It's not a personal appearance like the hearing, and they're looking for legal error or gross factual error, so they only reverse about 10%. However, and this is big, if you lose before the Appeals Council, you have a statutory right, an absolute right to sue the government in federal court. And our office does it all the time. On behalf of our own clients, on behalf of other lawyers' clients, many lawyers who do this kind of work don't go to federal court, but you have a right to sue in federal court. You sue the Commissioner of Social Security, who today is a guy named Frank Bisignano, and you sue Frank and you say, hey, the government didn't do right by me. And you ask a federal judge the same kind of federal judge who's
Right.
hearing the cases you're reading about in the news every day to review your own Social Security case. And they have to do it, and they do it willingly, happily. And we've had judges tell us that even though these cases are, we don't file that many, but a burden on them because there are big records that have to be studied. They say they understand that these cases involve individual Americans and whether or not they're going to have income, and they take them very seriously. It's a great practice. Yeah, so that's your last step. If you lose in the district court, you have a right to file in the Court of Appeals. That's a real judgment call by your lawyer.
But Ms. Deborah, what if I'm not sure whether I qualify or not? What's the best way to find out?
Well, call somebody who can give you an opinion. Sure. You
Yeah.
know, a lawyer, a legal aid person, do not, I beg people, don't ask your mother-in-law, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Every day I hear, well, my cousin who isn't as sick as I am, or my mother's bridge partner said,
Ooh, shout out to Bridge. The Bridge, man. That's a great game.
no, I'm shouting out at the bridge. I do not play. The bridge ladies are the worst. And they say, oh, no, you can't get it for autism or something. But really, it's, the guy down the street who I see
Right.
sitting in his lawn chair and he, blah, blah, blah. And I always say to people, stop right there. I don't want to hear about that. Let's talk about you.
Yep.
Question one, have you paid enough into the system? You can find that out online, or I can tell you, or someone else can tell you how to do that. Question two, what are your medicals? Now, I will tell you that people call me, and we get people calling all day, every day. I can tell when someone calls if it's a viable disability case.
Hmm.
Not whether that person's going to be approved eventually or not, but whether it's even arguable
Right.
and viable. But often, and I did it again this morning before we started recording, I said to someone, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go ahead and apply. Here's how you do it. I sent her a link and I said, and you send me your MRIs, your x-rays, and your most recent doctor reports. And then we'll have a Zoom meeting and talk. And I'll give you my opinion on whether I think we can make a case out of it. I decide in our firm, I'm clearly the senior member of our firm, and I make the decision about which cases we take initially. Other people help me decide which cases we'll take to federal court, and I let them do that because they have to write the briefs. But I make the decisions about who we take on initially, and I use what I call a colorability standard. What I mean by that is that of those steps I told you, are you working? Do you have a severe impairment? Do you have a listed impairment? Can you do your past work? Can you do anything else? If we have something to say in your favor at each of those steps, that's how I decide if we offer our services. If I'm
Mm.
not sure, if I'm not sure you have a severe impairment, I may either decline and say, just my opinion, get a couple more opinions, or I may say, send me some medical records. I want to take a look at this and make sure we have a case.
Wow. You're not going to stop anytime soon, are you, Miss Deborah? You
Heck
still
no.
with me?
So, you asked me earlier about how I got into this kind of work,
Yeah.
and it was through legal aid, and I did thousands, I think, of administrative hearings before the administrative law judge and thousands of appeals. But at this point in my career, I'm running a firm with 5 lawyers and about 6 support people on any given day. And I found a whole new chapter of my life in running the firm. And I love it. It's been rock and roll times economically for the whole country for the last 6 years. And then there have been other times during our practice when, because of the economy, it's been tough to run a firm. But I love running the firm. I love managing, mentoring, editing, and then I talk to clients. When you call our firm, I return the phone call. I don't pick it up necessarily, but I return it. And there are a couple of other firms I'm aware of in which they have the senior people talk to clients. And I think that's really important. Not someone who's going to screen you or screen you out. I mean, someone who picks up the phone will ask some questions, of course,
Yeah.
to give me prep on it, but I do the actual in-depth conversation. And because of that, and it's terrific because of that, I hope to be doing this for a very long time. There's no reason not to. And I hate to say this to you, but really, what am I going to do? Play bridge? When I could be doing this, right? And this is good stuff. The lawyers who do this kind of work tend to be, by and large, really nice people who want to do the right thing. This is not lucrative. It's not corporate. There are some big firms around the country who have developed practices in this, but most of us are anywhere from solo practitioners to maybe, I would guess, 15 lawyers, but relatively small firms who do this day in, day out.
Absolutely. Ms. Deborah, thank you so much for your time.
It's been a great pleasure. I love talking to you.
Same. And thank you all for listening to Social Security Disability, the Approval Path. If you're wondering whether your condition qualifies, connect with Deborah at spectorandlenz.com. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review if you found this episode helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Evan.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.